My brother tried to steal my girlfriend. Then he stalked her. For the past 6 years, my life has been a quiet testament to the kind of happiness I never thought I'd find. My girlfriend, Brittany, and I met in the chaotic, hopeful days of college. And our relationship has since blossomed into a steady, comfortable partnership built on a foundation of mutual respect and a deep, easy love. We've been living together for 3 years. Our small apartment, a sanctuary of shared dreams and inside jokes. She's a physical therapist at the local children's hospital, a job that required a level of compassion and patience I find endlessly admirable. I manage a small but successful construction company, a business my father helped me start, a legacy of hard work and tangible creation. We've talked about marriage, of course, many times. Our conversation's a comfortable exploration of a future we both want. But we've been practical, choosing to save for a down payment on a house before we spend a fortune on a wedding. For Brittany, who grew up navigating the uncertain and often unstable world of the foster care system, the idea of owning a home, of having a place that is unequivocally and permanently hers, is a dream that holds a profound and sacred weight. I've been secretly looking at engagement rings for months, a beautiful, simple ring that I know she'll love, and I've been planning to propose this Christmas, a quiet, perfect moment just for us. My family, for their part, adores Brittany. My parents treat her not as a guest, but as the daughter they never had. My mom, in our weekly phone calls, always asks about Brittany before she even asks about me. My dad, a man of few words but deep affection, jokes that he likes her better than me, a testament to how seamlessly she has woven herself into the fabric of our family. My younger brother, Harold, and his longtime girlfriend, Fiona, are our constant companions, our go-to double date partners. We've shared countless meals, gone to concerts, and spent long, lazy weekends together. Harold has even asked me to be his best man when he proposes to Fiona next year, a plan that has been in the works for months. Harold has always been the golden child of our family, the brilliant, shining star to my more grounded, athletic earth. He was the straight-A student, the one who earned a full academic scholarship to a prestigious university, the one who landed his dream job at a hot, downtown tech startup right after graduation. I was the jock, the one who was good with my hands, the one who preferred the tangible world of construction to the abstract world of academia. We were different, our paths divergent, and because of that, there was never any real competition between us. He was, and has always been, my best friend, the one person in the world I thought I could trust with anything. That trust, a bond forged over 28 years of brotherhood, was shattered into a million irreparable pieces 3 weeks ago at my father's 55th birthday party. My mom had thrown a big, boisterous barbecue in their backyard, the kind of sprawling, chaotic family gathering that is a hallmark of our summers. The air was thick with the smell of grilled hot dogs and freshly cut grass. My cousins were engaged in a loud, competitive game of volleyball. My uncles, as always, were huddled together, arguing about football. And my aunts were on the back porch, their hushed, gossipy laughter a familiar soundtrack to our family get-togethers. Brittany, who had just come from a grueling double shift at the hospital, was sitting at a picnic table with my mom, her scrubs a stark contrast to the festive, summer dresses of everyone else. She looked exhausted, but she wouldn't have missed my dad's birthday for the world. I was by the grill with my dad, a beer in my hand, when Harold approached, a strange, nervous energy about him that was entirely out of character. He was usually the epitome of cool, confident self-assurance. He asked if he could talk to me privately, and we retreated to the quiet of the kitchen. He started by talking about Fiona, about how happy she made him, about how he was finally ready to settle down, to propose, to start a family. I was excited for him, my mind already racing with ideas for how I could help him plan the perfect, unforgettable proposal. I thought I knew where the conversation was going. I was wrong. The tonal shift was so abrupt, so shocking, that it felt like a physical blow. He told me, his voice a low, serious murmur, that he needed to be honest about something he had been hiding for years, something that he could no longer keep to himself if he was going to marry Fiona. He told me that he had been in love with Brittany since the day I first introduced them, for years ago. I just stared at him, my mind refusing to process the words he was saying. I thought it was a joke, a bizarre, tasteless, and deeply unfunny prank. But his face was completely, utterly serious, his eyes filled with a raw, desperate emotion I had never seen in him before. He continued, the words spilling out of him in a torrent of long-suppressed confession. He tried to get over her, he said, but he couldn't. He claimed that watching me with her, watching our easy, happy love, was a form of daily torture, that he had been pretending to be happy for us for years while secretly, desperately, wanting what I had. He couldn't marry Fiona, he explained, not while he was still so completely and hopelessly in love with someone else. It wouldn't be fair to her. And then, with a breathtaking, almost sociopathic level of audacity, He asked me, his brother, his best friend, to break up with Brittany, to just step aside so that he could finally have his chance with her. The room seemed to tilt on its axis. You're insane. I finally managed to choke out. You're completely insane. Brittany loves me. She would never, ever leave me for you. I'm not so sure about that, he said, his voice now taking on a strange, almost confident tone. He claimed that Brittany had been giving him signals for years, subtle, secret invitations that only he was perceptive enough to see. She would touch his arm when she laughed at his jokes. She would text him separately, outside of our usual group chats. She would ask him for his advice on her work problems, a sign he believed that she valued his opinion more than mine. The delusion was so complete, so thorough, that it was terrifying. My own brother, the man I trusted more than anyone, was asking me to voluntarily dismantle my life, to give up the woman I was planning to marry, so that he could pursue a fantasy that he had constructed entirely in his own mind. He even had the gall to say that he would wait a respectable amount of time after I broke up with her before he made his move, so that it wouldn't look like he was stealing her from me. I told him, in no uncertain terms, that he was out of his mind. I told him to forget about Brittany, to focus on the real, wonderful woman who loved him, to stop throwing away his own happiness for the sake of a delusional, impossible fantasy. But my words, my logic, my desperate pleas for him to return to reality, they didn't seem to register. He got angry then, his voice rising, accusing me of being selfish. Just because you met her first, he spat, his words a venomous, resentful hiss, doesn't mean you deserve her more than I do. We were on the verge of a full-blown, screaming match when my dad walked in, his face a mask of concern. Harold, with a chilling, chameleon-like speed, immediately shifted his tone, his demeanor, his entire being. "Nothing, Dad," he said, his voice suddenly calm and casual. "Just talking about some work stuff." My dad looked suspicious, but he let it go, reminding us that my mom was about to cut the birthday cake. I walked back out into the bright, cheerful chaos of the party in a daze, my mind a maelstrom of shock, betrayal, and a deep, profound, and soul-crushing sadness. Brittany was now by the swing set, pushing my little cousins, her laughter a bright, beautiful sound that now felt tainted. I watched her, so natural, so good with the kids, and I thought about the engagement ring hidden in my sock drawer at home, about the quiet, perfect life I had been so sure we were going to build together. A few minutes later, Harold sat down next to her on the swings. I watched, my heart a cold, heavy stone in my chest, as he made her laugh, as he casually, possessively, placed his hand on her shoulder. Brittany, in her innocence, in her complete and utter obliviousness to the drama that was swirling around her, didn't even seem to notice. But I did. Every interaction between them, every shared laugh, every casual touch, was now filtered through the ugly, poisonous lens of my brother's confession. The rest of the party was a form of slow, excruciating torture. I became a reluctant detective, a spy at my own family gathering, analyzing every glance, every word, every gesture between them, searching for the signals Harold had so confidently described. And I saw them, of course. Brittany did touch his arm when he made a particularly funny joke. She did ask for his advice about a conflict she was having with her boss. But she did those things with everyone. She was a naturally affectionate, open, and trusting person. She touched my dad's arm when he told a story. She asked my aunt for advice about her garden. What Harold saw as a secret, coded invitation was, in reality, just Brittany being Brittany. When it was time to leave, Harold hugged her goodbye, as he always did. But this time I noticed it. He held on for a fraction of a second too long, his eyes closing as if he was trying to memorize the feel of her in his arms. Brittany, in her beautiful innocence, didn't seem to notice. But I did. The drive home was a cocoon of tense, suffocating silence. "What's wrong?" Brittany finally asked, her voice a gentle probe in the darkness of the car. "You've been so quiet all evening." "Just tired," I lied, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. She reached over and squeezed my hand, her touch a familiar, comforting gesture that now felt complicated and fraught. "I love you," she said softly, "and I'm so proud of how close you are to your family." The irony was a bitter, painful pill to swallow. Sleep was an impossibility that night. I lay awake for hours, my mind a relentless projector of my own personal horror film, replaying every detail of Harold's confession, of the party of the past 4 years. Was it possible? Were there really signals I had so blindly and foolishly missed? Did Brittany, on some deep, subconscious level, harbor feelings for my brother that she was hiding, even from herself? Or was Harold simply delusional, a man so consumed by his own fantasy that he was seeing what he wanted to see? I began to question everything, to dissect every memory, every interaction. When Brittany would text Harold directly, outside of our group chat, was it really just to ask a quick question, or was it a desire for a more private, intimate connection? When she sought his advice, was it really because she valued his perspective as a friend, or was it a sign of a deeper, more profound respect for him than she had for me? When she laughed a little too hard at his jokes, was it just because he was funny, or was she, on some level, flirting? The worst part was the suffocating, crushing loneliness of it all. I couldn't talk to anyone. I couldn't tell Brittany. It would shatter her innocent, loving relationship with my brother and make our family gatherings, the cornerstone of our social life, an unbearable landscape of awkwardness and resentment. I couldn't tell my parents. It would detonate a bomb in the heart of our family, forcing them to choose sides between their two sons. I couldn't even tell my friends. They would just tell me I was being paranoid, that I was letting my own insecurities get the better of me. And so, for the next 3 weeks, I lived a lie. I watched my brother, my best friend, actively and with an increasing boldness, try to steal the love of my life, all while pretending that everything was normal. I became a silent, tortured observer of my own life's potential destruction. I became a detective in my own relationship, a reluctant spy in my own family. I analyzed every text message, every shared glance, every casual conversation between them. In a moment of deep, profound, and self-loathing weakness, I even went through Brittany's phone while she was in the shower, a violation of her trust that made me hate myself. I found nothing. Her texts to Harold were a mundane, almost boring, collection of restaurant recommendations, funny memes, and casual, friendly chatter about work. There was nothing romantic, nothing inappropriate, nothing that even hinted at the secret coded romance Harold had described. But Harold's behavior, now that I was looking for it, had undeniably changed. He was getting bolder, more obvious in his pursuit. He would stare at Brittany at family dinners with a hungry, possessive intensity when he thought no one was looking. He would constantly find excuses to be alone with her, offering to help her carry things to her car, walking with her to get drinks at parties, creating small, intimate bubbles of conversation that excluded everyone else. He would ask her intensely personal questions, not just about her day, but about her childhood in foster care, about her deepest fears, about her dreams for the future, a form of emotional intimacy that was deeply, fundamentally inappropriate. The breaking point, the moment I knew I could no longer be a passive observer in this slow-motion car crash, came at Fiona's birthday dinner. Fiona, sweet, kind, and utterly oblivious, had been planning the small, intimate dinner for weeks. She had cooked an elaborate, multi-course meal and decorated their small apartment with a care and attention to detail that was a testament to her love for my brother. She was so happy, so excited, her conversation filled with hopeful, not-so-subtle hints about their own impending engagement. Harold, however, was a ghost at his own girlfriend's party. He barely paid attention to Fiona all night, his gaze constantly, and with a desperate, almost pathetic intensity, fixed on Brittany. When Brittany, in her usual kind and supportive way, complimented Fiona's cooking, Harold had interjected with, "You'd be an even better cook, Brittany, once you had more practice." When Fiona proudly showed us photos from a recent work trip she had taken, Harold had immediately changed the subject, asking Brittany about a vacation she had taken 2 years ago. The small, constant, and deliberate slights were a form of psychological torture, and I could see the hurt and confusion growing in Fiona's eyes. At the end of the night, in a move of breathtaking audacity, Harold offered to walk Brittany down to our car while I helped Fiona with the dishes. I watched from the apartment window as they stood in the parking lot, talking for a full 10 minutes. When Brittany came back upstairs, her face a mask of innocent, friendly chatter, she explained that Harold had just been asking for her professional advice on a work-related injury. She had no idea that her kindness, her willingness to help, was being twisted in his mind into another signal. I knew then that Brittany was completely, utterly, and dangerously unaware of what was happening. She trusted Harold, her boyfriend's brother, completely. She saw him as family, and Harold was exploiting that trust, that innocence, with a chilling, predatory precision. It was only a matter of time before he made a more direct, more aggressive move on her, and I didn't know what would happen then. I couldn't keep living like this, a silent, helpless witness to my brother's escalating obsession. After 3 weeks of living in a state of suspended, high-alert anxiety, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't keep carrying this toxic secret alone. I decided to tell Brittany everything. I waited for a quiet evening, when we were alone in our apartment, the comfortable silence of our shared life a stark contrast to the chaotic storm that was raging inside me. She was in the kitchen, humming along to the radio as she made dinner, completely, blissfully, and beautifully unaware of the bomb I was about to drop on her world. I sat her down at our small dining table, and with a voice that I struggled to keep steady, I told her everything. I told her about Harold's shocking confession at my dad's barbecue, about his delusional belief that she was sending him secret signals, about the past 3 weeks of my own personal, paranoid hell. Her face, as I spoke, was a canvas of rapidly shifting emotions: confusion, then disbelief, then a deep, visceral disgust, and finally, a white-hot, protective anger. She was horrified, not just by Harold's obsession, but by his betrayal of Fiona, a woman she considered friend. She wanted to confront him immediately, to call him and scream at him, but I convinced her to wait, to be strategic. The next opportunity for a confrontation, or for more drama, came the following weekend, at my cousin's wedding. We decided on a plan. We would be polite, but distant. We would avoid being alone with Harold at all costs. The wedding was a beautiful, picturesque affair at an old, sprawling mansion with meticulously manicured gardens. The reception was held in a large, elegant tent on the lawn, the air filled with music, laughter, and the clinking of champagne glasses. For a while, I actually managed to relax. And then, around 10 o'clock, Brittany excused herself to go to the bathroom. She was gone for a little too long, and a familiar, cold knot of dread began to form in my stomach. I went looking for her. I found them by a secluded fountain in the back of the garden, partially hidden by a row of tall, sculpted hedges. Harold had her cornered, his body blocking her path, his hand on her arm. He was leaning in, his voice a low, urgent murmur. Brittany looked terrified, her body language a scream of discomfort. Then, he leaned in as if to kiss her, and she pushed him away hard. That's when I stepped out from behind the hedge. Harold, caught in the act, jumped back, his face flushing a deep, guilty red. Brittany's expression was a mixture of profound relief at my arrival and a deep, mortifying embarrassment, as if she somehow believed this was her fault. The confrontation that followed was a messy, ugly, and ultimately public affair. Harold, his delusion now on full display, accused Brittany of leading him on, of playing games with his heart. Brittany, her voice shaking with a mixture of rage and disgust, told him he was delusional, that she had never, not once, given him any reason to believe she was interested. The argument escalated, their voices rising, until Harold, in a moment of pure, narcissistic desperation, declared that Fiona was just a placeholder, a temporary diversion until he could finally be with Brittany, the woman he was meant to be with. Brittany, horrified, began to cry, not for herself, but for Fiona, for the casual, cruel way he had just dismissed her and their relationship. I finally stepped in, my own voice a low, dangerous growl. I told Harold that if he ever approached Brittany again, I would tell Fiona and our parents everything. But he was beyond reason. He looked at me, a wild, desperate gleam in his eyes, and he said, "Tell them whatever you want. I'm going to tell Fiona myself. Tonight. I'm tired of living a lie." And then he turned and walked away, leaving us standing in the quiet, moonlit garden, the sound of the wedding reception a distant, mocking echo. The next morning, Fiona called me, her voice a broken, sobbing mess. Harold, true to his word, had confessed everything. But he had, of course, twisted the story, painting himself not as the obsessive stalker, but as the reluctant object of Brittany's affections. He told Fiona that Brittany had been flirting with him for months, that she had only rejected him at the wedding because she was afraid of hurting me. Fiona, her heart broken, her trust shattered, didn't know what to believe. I told her the truth, the whole, ugly, unvarnished truth, but she was trapped in a vortex of his lies and her own love for him. In the weeks that followed, Harold, a master manipulator, managed to convince Fiona to take him back. He fed her a story of a momentary confusion, a brief, stress-induced lapse in judgment. He promised to go to couples counseling. He bought her a promise ring. And Fiona, so desperately wanting to believe in the life they had planned together, chose to believe him. But Brittany and I knew better. We watched him at family dinners, his gaze still lingering on Brittany a second too long, his compliments still a little too personal. 6 weeks later, at my dad's retirement party, he made his final, desperate move. He cornered Brittany again, this time a hallway outside the restrooms, his demeanor not pleading, but demanding. He told her he was going to break up with Fiona that night, that he was done pretending. He gave her an ultimatum. Either she gave him a chance, or he would destroy both their families. When she, once again, rejected him, his rage was explosive. He told her that if she didn't care about him, then why did she keep being so nice to him? He accused her of sending mixed signals, of being a tease. He was, once again, twisting her own kindness, her own good nature, into a weapon against her. That was when he made his announcement. In the middle of my father's retirement party, in front of our entire family and my father's bewildered colleagues, Harold stood up and declared that he was breaking up with Fiona because his heart belonged to someone else. He then looked directly at Brittany and said that he had been in love with her for years and could no longer live a lie. The room went silent. Fiona, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated horror, burst into tears and fled the restaurant. My parents were shocked, horrified, ashamed, and Brittany, forced into the spotlight of his insane, public declaration, finally, and with a courage I had never seen in her before, stood up and told everyone the truth. She told them that Harold had been harassing her for months, that she loved me, and that she wanted nothing to do with him. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. Harold, faced with the universal condemnation of his own family, finally, and for the first time, seemed to realize the extent of the damage he had caused. But the real and most terrifying escalation was yet to come. In the weeks that followed, his obsession with Brittany morphed into a full-blown stalking campaign. He would show up at her workplace. He would follow her at the grocery store. He began sending her a relentless barrage of messages, at first pleading and romantic, and then, when she refused to respond, increasingly cruel and threatening. He used her deepest insecurity, her childhood in the foster care system, against her, calling her damaged and unworthy of real love. Brittany, who had always been so strong, so resilient, began to unravel. She was anxious, paranoid, afraid to leave the house alone. That's when we knew we had to take legal action. We filed for a restraining order. And finally, when presented with a mountain of his own obsessive, threatening messages, our parents finally, and with a deep, profound, and heartbreaking shame, saw their golden child for the monster he had become. They confronted him, and in the face of their united front, he finally broke down, admitting the full extent of his delusion. He is now living back at home, unemployed, and in court-mandated therapy. The restraining order is in place. And Brittany and I, our relationship forged in the fires of this insane, unimaginable ordeal, are finally beginning to heal. The proposal I had planned for Christmas is on hold for now. We need time to rebuild the sense of safety and normalcy that my own brother so selfishly and systematically tried to destroy.